As of March 2026, more than 45 days have passed since she was taken. Over 40,000 tips, 10,000 hours of surveillance footage reviewed, a massive federal task force, cadaver dogs, genetic genealogy experts, border patrols, and still, no answers, no body, no suspect named publicly. But the questions keep piling up. Why did one side of the Ring camera system suddenly go dark, the side facing her property, while the others kept recording? Why was a ransom message sent directly to her daughter Annie and son-in-law Tommaso Cioni instead of to Savannah or the FBI? And why does the physical description of a longtime bandmate of Tommaso's match the masked figure caught on FBI-released footage approaching her home multiple times before the disappearance? By Sunday morning, February 1st, friends waiting for her at a live-streamed church service grew worried when she never arrived. They called her children. The family rushed over. What they found inside that house sent chills down their spines and set off one of the largest miles of desert. Genetic genealogy teams worked DNA from the scene. The FBI released footage from Nancy's own cameras showing a masked, armed individual in dark clothing with a backpack and holster approaching the home in the days leading up to the disappearance. The sheriff's department called it potential evidence of surveillance. Yet after all this, no official suspect named, no arrest, and the growing silence has many wondering, is the perpetrator extraordinarily careful, or are deeper problems plaguing the investigation itself? That brings us to the man at the center of it all, Sheriff Chris Nanos. Long before Nancy Guthrie vanished, Nanos's law enforcement career began under complicated circumstances. Circumstances. In 1976, at just 20 years old, he joined the El Paso Police Department in Texas, his hometown. Early on, he took on undercover work, posing as bait to catch street criminals and drug dealers. He earned some recognition, but disciplinary issues soon piled up. Internal records, later examined by Arizona Republic journalists, show that in a 6-year period, Nanos received suspensions totaling 37 days. The violations included repeated tardiness, misconduct, off-duty gambling, and allegations of insubordination. One incident near the end of his tenure stood out. During the arrest of a robbery suspect, Nanos allegedly kicked the man with such force that the suspect required hospitalization in the intensive care unit. That resulted in a 15-day suspension, the longest in his file at the time. Department officials noted an ongoing pattern of inefficiency and were reportedly preparing to terminate him. Before that could happen, Nanos resigned in 1982. But here's where the timeline gets murky and where renewed scrutiny has exploded in 2026. His publicly posted resume on the Pima County Sheriff's Department website stated he left the El Paso Police Department in 1984, 2 full years later than the official records show. When the Arizona Republic asked about the discrepancy recently, department representatives called it an administrative mistake. The resume was quietly corrected after the reporting. Even so, that early phase of his career has drawn fresh eyes amid the Guthrie case. After moving to Arizona, Nanos rebuilt his reputation. He rose through the ranks in Pima County, eventually becoming sheriff and leading one of the largest departments in the region. But controversy never fully left him. In 2015, the FBI launched an investigation into the Pima County Sheriff's Department over alleged misuse of civil asset forfeiture funds, money seized in criminal cases that's supposed to support law enforcement. Hundreds of thousands of dollars were reportedly spent on things like elaborate awards banquets and even building a commercial kitchen for an on-site cafe connected to the niece of one of Nanos's top deputies. Concerns about conflicts of interest swirled. In 2016, Chief Deputy Chris Radke was indicted on federal charges tied to the probe. While the case was ongoing, Radke tragically took his own life. Nanos himself was never charged, but in a Tucson television interview at the time, he openly criticized the FBI, using strong language and expressing deep frustration. Former Chief Deputy Richard Castigar later told reporters that Nanos carried lasting resentment toward federal authorities because of that investigation. Observers now wonder openly whether that history is affecting collaboration in the Guthrie case, especially since the FBI is heavily involved. The political climate around Nanos grew even more tense in the years leading up to Nancy's disappearance. In the 2024 election, he faced an internal challenge from Lieutenant Heather Lupin, who announced she would run against him. Just weeks before the vote, Lupin was suddenly placed on administrative leave and ordered to stay home during work hours, severely limiting her campaign. At the same time, Sergeant Aaron Cross, president of the Deputies Union, was suspended after a photo surfaced of him holding a sign criticizing the sheriff. Both later filed federal lawsuits. County Supervisor Matt Hines asked the State Attorney General and U.S. Attorney to review the suspensions for possible election interference. Despite the drama, Nanos won re-election by the razor-thin margin of just 481 votes countywide. Tensions inside the department were already boiling. At one point, deputies held a no-confidence vote in Nanos's leadership. The result was stunning. 85 out of 86 deputies voted that they did not trust him to lead. This was the man who personally responded to Nancy Guthrie's home the morning she was reported missing. Why it was released in less than 24 hours, allowing pool crews, landscapers, reporters, and even a home health aide to trample through and potentially contaminate evidence. We'll examine the decision to send DNA to a private Florida lab instead of the FBI's world-class facility in Quantico. The conflicting public statements about gloves found inside versus outside the home, the overlooked roof camera, the pacemaker signal that disappeared after media leaks,
and the neighbor's ring footage of that suspicious vehicle at 2:36 a.m. We'll ask the toughest question of all. Are investigative missteps and internal department divisions making it harder to bring Nancy home? The mystery deepens with every layer. An 84-year-old woman taken from her bed, and the truth still buried in the Arizona desert. Please click the subscribe button, like, and share. When Nancy Guthrie was reported missing on February 1, 2026, the response initially looked serious. Homicide investigators were on scene quickly. Blood near the entrance confirmed as hers. Doorbell camera physically removed. The home screamed targeted abduction. But criticism exploded almost immediately over how the crime scene was handled. Rather than securing the residence for days or even weeks, standard in potential homicide or abduction cases involving biological evidence, authorities released the property in less than 24 hours. Forensic experts were stunned. In cases like this, especially with an elderly victim and blood evidence, scenes are typically preserved much longer. Specialists document every surface, collect microscopic traces, reconstruct movements. Here, the house was turned back over. And then the unexpected visitors started showing up. A pool maintenance company arrived, even though they had never serviced the property before. A landscaping crew pulled in with equipment. A food delivery was dropped off. A home health aide entered the house. Reporters got close enough to photograph the blood on the ground near the entrance. Each of those entries, experts warn, risked destroying evidence forever. This brings us to one of the most important principles in criminal investigation, Lecard's exchange principle. Formulated by French criminologist Edmond Lecard in the early 20th century, it states that every contact leaves a trace. Every person who walks into a scene can leave behind hair, fibers, skin cells, shoe prints, DNA, and they can pick up trace evidence from the perpetrator too. When multiple unrelated people trample through a fresh crime scene, that microscopic evidence mixes like a contaminated sample. Later in court, defense attorneys can argue the DNA or fibers aren't reliable. Investigators may never isolate what truly belonged to the abductor. Specialists following this case say the early release may have been a critical error, one that could haunt the investigation for years. Another oversight added fuel to the fire. During the initial search, a camera mounted on the roof of the property was completely missed. Specialists were later called in to try recovering data from it. The discovery raised serious questions. What else was overlooked in those critical first hours? Then came the decision on DNA evidence that still has legal experts shaking their heads. Instead of sending biological samples to the FBI's state-of-the-art forensic laboratory in Quantico, Virginia, the gold standard used in countless high-profile cases, the sheriff's office chose a private forensic lab in Florida. Sheriff Nanos explained the choice. He wanted all samples processed in a single facility rather than split among labs, and he warned the public that DNA results could take months anyway. But former Arizona Supreme Court Justice Andrew Gould and others questioned whether that slowed progress. DNA analysis is time-consuming enough. Routing it outside the FBI system raised eyebrows, especially given Nanos's past tensions with federal agencies. For a brief moment, hope surged when a pair of gloves was discovered about 2 miles from Nancy's home. Could this be the breakthrough? Initial speculation linked them to the masked figure on camera. But DNA testing revealed the genetic material belonged to a restaurant employee with zero connection to the case. Dead end. Confusion grew when conflicting statements emerged publicly. Federal sources indicated a glove had been found inside the residence. Sheriff Nanos insisted no such item was ever recovered from the home. The differing accounts left the public and even some investigators puzzled about coordination between agencies. Public messaging shifted too. Early on, Nanos said everyone remained a potential suspect. 2 weeks later, he announced the entire Guthrie family had been cleared, calling speculation cruel. Yet, at the same time, reports indicated detectives were still searching family properties and examining vehicles. National media reported surveillance images of a masked individual approaching the home multiple times beforehand. The sheriff's department dismissed some claims as speculation. Retired FBI agents watching the case say these communication problems have shifted focus away from the evidence and on to the investigation itself. Strained relationships inside the department, remember that 85-1 no-confidence vote, could be affecting information flow. One of the most unusual efforts involved Nancy's pacemaker. The medical device could transmit Bluetooth signals. Investigators used specialized aerial equipment capable of detecting those signals from high above the desert without alerting anyone on the ground. They scanned a wide area hoping for a ping. But details of the operation leaked to the media before the scan finished. Soon after the reports aired, the pacemaker signal was never detected again. Whoever had Nancy may have learned about the tracking through news coverage and silenced the device.
After the signal vanished, search teams narrowed to a 2-mile radius around the home. Then another clue surfaced just outside that perimeter. A couple living 2.5 miles away on Camino Royale checked their Ring camera. It had captured a vehicle passing at 2:36 a.m. on the night Nancy disappeared, minutes after her final pacemaker signal. Investigators are still poring over that footage. Is it connected, or another dead end in a case already overflowing with them? As of today, in March 2026, more than 45 days have passed. The Guthrie family visited a makeshift memorial outside Nancy's home, leaving flowers and cards. Savannah and her siblings continue pleading publicly. The reward stands at over $1 million. The task force keeps working, tips still coming in, footage still being reviewed, DNA still being analyzed. But the central question remains: what truly happened inside Nancy Guthrie's home that night? Blood on the porch, camera removed, medication untouched, an elderly woman taken into the desert without her most vital items. The investigation has become as puzzling as the disappearance itself. Overlooked cameras, disputed evidence, crime scene contamination risks, conflicting statements. Somewhere in the thousands of tips, the surveillance recordings, the genetic profiles, and the witness accounts lies the single detail that could crack this case wide open. Until that moment arrives, Nancy Guthrie's story stands as a painful reminder. Even in an era of cameras everywhere, advanced forensics, and massive task forces, some disappearances can still leave an entire community and a devastated family searching for the truth. Sheriff Nanos has said investigators are definitely closer and believes Nancy was targeted, possibly by someone who could strike again. He maintains decisions were made with care. For Nancy's family, every new lead brings fragile hope, and every faded clue deepens the agony. If you have any information, no matter how small, about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department or the FBI tip line immediately. Her life may still depend on it. The search continues, and the mystery endures. We'll keep following this one until there's justice. Thank you for watching. Stay safe out there.